Hello and welcome to a book review. I don't do a lot of individual book reviews on my channel, probably should, but I generally have not too much to say, and so just a wrap up is fine. But today I want to talk about The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune, which I read a couple of weeks ago now. I read and listened to the audiobook and massively recommend the audiobook. The narrator did a fantastic job with the narration, and this became my favourite book of the year so far, and I absolutely loved it, and so I wanted to do a dedicated review video for it. Now, you've probably heard lots about this book already because it's been really hyped on BookTube and on Bookstagram, and I'm sure on BookTwitter as well, but I wanted to talk about it anyway. So this story follows Linus, who is essentially a child social worker. So his job is to go to orphanages and inspect the orphanages to make sure that the children are being properly cared for and that the orphanage is acting in a proper way. The slight difference with this story is that it's urban fantasy, so the orphanages are actually for children with special abilities, magical abilities, and so they have very specific needs, and that is Linus's job, and he takes his job incredibly seriously, and he's then assigned to go to the house in the Cerulean Sea to check on a very special orphanage that is home to some very special magical children. And it causes Linus to have an adventure that he did not anticipate. And if that sounds really whimsical and fun to you, then that's exactly what this is. This is a very whimsical story. Right from the very beginning, Linus is an incredibly engaging character. He's very by the book and straight-laced, but he also does care. And you can see that. He was a very real and tangible character, and the same can be said for all of the characters in here, I think. The children at the house in the Cerulean Sea are all incredibly individual. They have their own personalities. They're vital parts of the story, but they're so much more than that as well. They are actual people that you become very attached to through the pages of this story, as does Arthur, the person in charge at the house in the Cerulean Sea, and he's a very mysterious character, but somehow, even though we don't know much about him for quite a large portion of the book, we still care about him and we still are very invested in him and what's happening to him and the house and all of the children in it. And this is very much a character-driven story, which, as you know, very much works for me. I'm definitely a character-driven reader, and I just really enjoyed the characters and how real and tangible and enjoyable they were. The effervescence that jumped off the page of these characters and brought even more to life by the audio narration was just absolutely delightful, frankly, and the plot was interesting as well. I've heard this described as middle grade for adults, and I think that that description does fit because it's got all of the whimsy that you get in a middle grade story, but with the more mature writing style and some of the more mature themes that you wouldn't get in a middle grade, but it's still, those slightly more mature themes don't take away from any of the whimsy or the magic that you are experiencing through the story and through the characters. There is a plot line, and I think that the plot line is interesting, but if you're a plot-driven reader, just bear in mind that the main driving force of the story is not the plot. Although there are sort of twists and things to work out, those do exist in here. That's not the main point. The main point is the characters and the character progression and the building of relationships and the building of an understanding. In particular, Linus comes to learn a lot about himself throughout this story as well, and those kinds of things are the main focus of this one rather than any specific plot line that we're following, although as I say there is one that holds it all together. I don't know what else I want to say because I don't want to spoil the story for anyone or spoil any of the character development for anyone. So I will say that there is queerness in here and there is mental health representation. There are triggers for abandonment and child abuse, but those are off page, they're hinted at, they're not on page. There are hints of the kinds of things that end up with children being in care rather than in a family home. So just check the trigger warnings for it if that kind of thing is going to bother you. But overall, this is a very hopeful and uplifting story, and although there might be triggering content, I think that anything that is triggering, such as the abandonment or the historical child abuse, is combated and is discussed and is dealt with, and the people who are struggling with those things are supported. And so I think that this is quite a healthy representation of how people might deal with having gone through those things in their lives, but only you will know if that's something that's going to be helpful for you or just still triggering for you. So as always with any book, take care of yourself, but I cannot recommend this book enough. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to reread it. Like I said at the beginning, this became my favourite book of the year when I read it, and that's all there is to say, really. If you've read this one already, let me know what you thought of it down in the comments section, and if you haven't yet read it and you want to read it, then let me know that too, because I'd be super interested to know. I was keen to keep this review spoiler free because it's a relatively new release, but if you have read it and you want to talk spoilers with me, just let me know down in the comments and space all the way down so that you don't spoil anyone that hasn't read this one yet. And that's it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like this from me, then do think about hitting that subscribe button, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks.